Here's just a quick little reminder that we have two of these different ACI boxes for the Breeze coils. S and L stands for short and long. The cable length is what differentiates the two. Here you can see, and also there's two balins on the long one. There's a balin here and a balin here, and there's only one balin on the short one. So if you ever see this and you're like, if you only have one on site, but you see that there's two available as FRUs, that's what those differences are. Here's a link directly to fixing and repairing coils that are used on that system there. This is a presentation or document that Chandra Rice, who I mentioned earlier, has made about how to find your parts on InCenter that goes into even more detail. I don't want this to be a presentation about InCenter, just an awareness of everything that has changed on InCenter. But if you want to find the specific details, go find this document. It was in the earlier window where I showed you where the icon was, and she goes into very much in depth about how to search and find things on InCenter. Any questions or comments about InCenter and documentation and product support there? Man, you guys are a quiet group. All right. I want to bring up a really neat resource that has been put together independently by my colleague Pim Kors in the Netherlands, in Europe. He's got a SharePoint, and everybody can access it with this link right here. And it's they call it MR Knowledge Sharing. And if you go on that site, and actually I'm going to try to let me bring it up for you in real time because it is so good. Yeah, let's see if I can click it on there. It's kind of like a one-stop shop for, oh, here you get to see some of my work. Right here, this link right here. SharePoint site comes up really quick. You don't need to log on to it or anything. He's got a list of all the most current newsletters right here with a screenshot of the topic of each one. You don't need to go to InCenter to find that. Here's the latest FCO that's been released, information. This is a great list right here of all useful links. Tool catalogs, MR newsletters, Partsopedia, how to identify some parts, coil-related links right here. He's got the update about the 32-channel head coil issue, transmit receive coils, the RF coil repair manual that Japan has put together for us. That's also on InCenter now. The specific newsletter that says, yes, you can open coils. All this information right here, really easy to get. And like I said, it's not just for coils. It's got all sorts of advanced skills for InCenter. Really, Service Max documentations, FAQs, a fantastic example of what can be done. And it's a little embarrassing that the BU has not been able to put this document together online and made it available for everybody. Highly encourage you to grab that link in the newsletter or in this SharePoint link right there, and bookmark it and use it. It's kind of like my first go-to spot in the morning. I open it each day, and it's open in the background while I'm working.
So yeah, there was a question in chat that they guess that is not for the distributor engineers, right? The SharePoint.
It's not for the what?
For the distributor engineers.
Yeah, that came up in my Latin America thing. That there's engineers, and I don't really understand fully the relationship that we have and the intellectual property constraints that we have. As far as what levels of IST people have as far as access to information. If somebody's contracted by Philips to work on a system, it makes sense to me that we give them the tools that they need to work on the system. And I'm going to raise this up as a question to somebody. I'm not sure who, to find out more about that. Because we also, I was going to share the link to the Hamburg tool, and that does require a code 1 identification to get access to. But it's the most useful tool that we have. So I take your question, and I realize it needs to be answered in a thorough way by somebody that's a higher pay grade than me. Let's move on into the known issues, coil improvements, and updates section. How are we doing on time? We're doing okay. Is there a question? Nope. Okay. Here's an issue that's come up recently. This is related to release 11, where we're seeing that people having an Interact 1H mist failure. That's a scan aboard, a detune error with the coil. But they're also showing up with QDD errors. And that can be very confusing because that sends you off in two different directions of what do you have to fix. It turns out the QDD errors are false. They are not really errors for the QDD. This is triggered by the Interact 1H mist for certain coils. It's usually a breeze coil, and the QDD failure, ignore that. Work on the Interact 1H mist failure first, which is usually related either to a socket error or a failure with the coil. If you replace that and you make the Interact 1H failure go away, likely the QDD failure will go away. This is supposed to be fixed in, I'm not sure what service pack it's supposed to be fixed in, but I just want to save you the time of not deep diving into trying to solve your QDD problem. Solve your Interact 1H problem. That is the problem. The other one is a false error generated by software. So I wasn't fully lying at that opening slide. Sometimes it is a software error.
Hey, one question, Dale, that when you
Yes.
said that if you have a loose connector or something and you mentioned earlier that to replace it, do you mean to replace the whole cable, that internal cable connector or with cable, or they just blow the air, clean it, and then replug it?
Well, internally, you would just blow out and reconnect it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's a separate project from doing an FRU for a cable, which you would replace the external cable that goes into the interior of the coil. Here's an update on the 32-channel head coil. One of our biggest faults on the 32-channel head coil was the ear flaps. As you know, they're flexible so they can conform around the patient's head and also be used with headphones. I think as anybody here knows, it makes sense to understand that anything that's flexible and electronic at the same time is going to have a high failure rate. And of course, this turned out to be a high failure rate. They did extreme tests over in Pune, India. They were able to get this to fail after 6,300 cycles of flexing. And they can see here that literally the circuit board, this is a circuit underneath in there, would tear completely. That creates an open circuit. The coil can't detune, and then you get a scan abort. 30% of returns were due to this flap channel error. They hold on. Just wanted to show you how much kind of work they're actually doing over there in India. They're trying to fix coils. Here was the solution for it, and unfortunately, this cannot be set up as an FRU or an FCO to send out into the field. But they're adding a stiffener inside of the ear flap before they put the circuit board in there, and this really reduces the bending radius of these. So they're protected quite a bit more from that flexing. They've done it where before they would get the coil to fail after 6,300 cycles. Now they've gone 9,000 cycles and they've had no failure yet. So feeling pretty good that we made a substantial improvement in the reliability of the 32-channel head coil. Speaking of the 32-channel head coil, we've had newsletters go out about the failure in the S-laser protocol use. That's a high RF energy scan that goes out. It was so high that it would blow the fuse in two of the channels of the head coil. These two channels were on the back of the head, which means that it's also lying up against the patient support. Inside the patient support, we've got cables going in there with big RF balins, and that was channeling some of that energy into the coil, causing these fuses to burn out on these two channels. Unfortunately, fuses cannot be repaired in the field, so the coil was having to get returned. We've discussed this earlier, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, But 13 and 29, if you see a failed IQT on both of those channels, or even one of these single channels, usually it's both, but sometimes it's just one or the other, you cannot fix this coil in the field. Don't open it up and start digging into it and wasting your time. Just replace the coil. But the important thing is, before you hand the new coil over to the customer, you want to make sure that they adjust their settings for any kind of S-laser protocol or any other protocol that's using high B1. Research department was saying anything above 21 microtesla was causing it. Our service findings is anything over 17 microteslas is causing it. So get your customer to assure you that they're not going to go above 17 microtesla until this coil is redesigned. There will be a penalty on the image quality that they're going to receive on this. So it might be worthwhile to bring in an application specialist to work with them on this. The BU is aware of this and is giving support to application specialists to help patients or customers out with this. But do not just replace the coil without talking to the customer, because this is a 30,000 plus euro coil, and it's just going to blow again if they continue the same behavior with it. So just remember, 17 microtesla, channels 13 and 29. There is a specific newsletter for this on InCenter. Look for that if you need the specific information to show your customer. Here's a little instruction showing what's being redesigned. This is just for your educational purpose, so that you know something is being done. The coil loop elements are being redesigned so that they're not coupling together and creating as much energy being picked up inductively from the valence inside of the patient support. So there is redesign going on with that. It's being tested. Prototypes have been made. I don't have a date yet when this is going to be released, but the problem is identified and being dealt with. Any questions about 32-channel head coils? These are obviously our most expensive coils, and it's really disappointing when we have problems like this, because a lot of our customers that use these coils excuse me, are high-profile customers, which they're luminary sites. They do research, they talk with each other. So I think it's really important for us to be aware when we're dealing with customers that have these coils, that we're really on the ball and ready to address their concerns, and for us to be knowledgeable about what the issues are with this. Like I said, this is our highest profile product that we have in the field.
Was there also a video on how to open a 32-channel head coil?
That there is one. There's an older one that shows you how to open it. There's a newer one that I'm still working on that is showing you how to open it, but also goes into detail about inspection. So there is one about opening it, yes.
Okay, good.
But there will be more.
Yeah.
A known issue that's come out, I'm not sure if Service Pack 3 has been released yet, but for release 11.1, actually I think it has been. I'm sorry for not having the information on that yet. Errors with the TR-knee coil calibration. As you know, any of our transmit receive coils, they have to be calibrated on site. Even if you're just replacing a TR-knee coil with a new one, you have to do new power calibration on the replacement coil, because they're all slightly a little bit different. We've had the calibration spec failing where it's off by just a little bit, and again, this is a software issue where things just aren't lining up correctly. Service Pack 3 for R11 should fix this. These are the 12 NCs of the coil that are affected by this. If you have a very slight issue with your power calibration on the TR-knee, it's most likely this software issue, so do not replace the coil. Here's new about the info about the anterior coil. The original anterior coil 1, which was the one that was first released when the Ingenious system was released. You can identify it physically because it's the coil that has the larger balance. They're the large cylindrical ones on the coil. The cable, the one that makes it kind of a little difficult to bend sometimes. These are all being phased out. If you replace the original coil, you will get the new anterior design 2 coil instead. It has a smaller valence on it. They're more lozenge shaped. They're smaller valence, easier to work with, considerably more reliable. In my opinion, the anterior one should have been withdrawn when the Interior 2 came out, but somebody's making some cost benefit analysis and decided to keep on with the old ones. The return rate was 45% for the Interior 1 coils. The return rate for the AC2 coils is 23%, so that's considerable improvement there. Just don't be surprised or don't be alarmed, and you don't have to do anything special. If you just order an FRU, you'll get the correct one, and this is just the awareness of this. There is a newsletter for that, of course, right there about the improved FRU newsletter. We're putting a lot more newsletters out. I know sometimes you guys get a lot of information coming from the BU, and it might get lost in the shuffle. So look for them all on InCenter, or look for them on that link that I sent you earlier about the SharePoint site. Generally, there's not tons of information in the newsletter, but it's just making you aware of anything new that's happening. Any question about the Interior coil? All right. Shoulder coil. We've had a lot of problems. Excuse me. Shoulder coil. Sorry? Okay. Shoulder coils. Shoulder coils are mechanically complicated. The original one is, and the newer one is. They're a one-size-fits-all customer and coil, and we make it adjustable so that it's going to touch the body as close as possible to get the best signal-to-noise ratio. Because of that, we've got some hinges and flaps, and we've got little detents to hold it up in position. And sometimes it's not the most user-friendly thing, and sometimes people don't know exactly how it's supposed to work. This has led to some failures. These coils get replaced because somebody will hold the shoulder coil up to the top to accommodate a large patient, and then it kind of just falls back down. So they replace the coil, and that's understandable because this locking switch right here is broken or doesn't work anymore. Same with this top flap up here, which affects the angle that this coil element will be on the body. We've had actually a lot of instances, though, where an FSE gets a replacement coil, and they want to sort of try out this coil to make sure that it's not going to fall down, and they're pushing down on it, and they're causing it to fail again, and then returning the coil again for another one, saying that it's defective. We want you to understand that this coil is not it's not designed to be in a hard setting that resists force. It's designed to just support its own weight and to hold it in a certain position for customer comfort. Even if this coil does kind of collapse and fall down on the patient, as long as it's just sitting on the patient consistently, it still works. We don't want you to break the coil by trying to prove that it's holding its position up and putting more force on it than what it was designed for in the field. It's just designed to support its own weight, not to be pressed on or to have sandbags put down on it. So we've had a lot of returns that are costing us a lot of money. Just be aware, get this coil, see if it works. Don't force it in any position or manhandle it, so to speak. Leave it on site, and if the customer has any problems, then come back and address the issues then. Sorry. Head cold. Another known issue, older wrist coils. There's still a lot of these wrist coils. They've only recently gotten redesigned where there's a large gap due to warpage of the shell of the wrist coil. The wrist coil closes and it locks, but it's got this large gap here. And unfortunately, in between this gap, there are electrical contacts. And if this gap gets big enough, or if the patient's hand flexes inside of there, it can cause the electrical contacts to make and break connections, and it can also cause a scan abort, and it can also cause image quality issues. There's nothing that you can do about this. Some coils are affected by this more. Some of the warpage on there is better or worse than others. Go ahead and replace this if they're having consistent problems with this. It has been redesigned. The new ones are shipping that are correct. You will get a correct one if you order a new one. The older ones are being taken out of stock. Just be aware of that. Nothing you can do to fix in the field. We want to provide support for you to be able to fix a coil in the field, but we also want to provide support to not waste your time in trying to fix a coil when you can't. Giving you support to give the best service to the customer in the least amount of time. I don't want to tell you to just open every coil all the time. Some can't be fixed. Speaking of coils that can't be fixed or opened in the field, there's a program going on in Japan right now, and I want to make you aware of this, about opening the anterior coil. The anterior coil is the most difficult coil to open in the field. It's usually only done in the repair department. The BU does not currently support fixing this coil in the field. There is a pilot project in Japan to open the coil and fix in the field. They've had some success with it. It has not concluded yet, so we don't know how far we're going to progress with this. But I know actually some people have opened these coils in the field. I know particularly from Meta that some of these coils have been opened and fixed in the field. I want to show that we are listening and trying to support what we can. My initial recommendation was to not allow them to support this, but I want you to see what may be coming up in the future. Here's an example of the work being done in Japan about opening these coils. I'm going to show you a quick video about how it's being done so that you can kind of get an indication for it. Unfortunately, I'm not able to get the audio to work for this with a PowerPoint. If anybody knows how to get PowerPoint video sharing, let me know. Here they're just showing what you need to do to open to get inside of it. They're using ESD protection here. You can see they've got their mat plugged in there. First thing you do is remove the covers. These covers are available as an FRU kit in case you damage these during the removal, or if these ever just get damaged in the field, you can order them as FRU without having to replace the whole coil. Now they're going to flip the coil over, and this pad on the bottom is connected by Velcro, and there's also a zipper on either side. Now, there's not a zipper mechanism to zip this back up. So as part of an FRU kit to do this in the field, you would have to order that, and you would have a little zipper so you can zip it back up after you're done with it. That comes off very quickly and easily, giving you access to the bottom side there. Now, the trick with this coil is that these flaps on the side are very easy to tear or break when you're removing them. The guys in Japan have done a really good job about being very careful and consistent about how to remove these without damaging them. This is the hardest part of this coil, is removing it from the housing. You can see it's easier with two people here. And they put this down completely flat vertical and lift straight up. And they're able to lift it up there. The threat was in the past, you can see it's reinforced here, is to not tear this part here. If you tear that, this coil is dead and cannot be fixed in the repair department, which is something we don't want to do. We already have a shortage sometimes for these coils. So this is the real critical part. And if we decide that people can remove these easily enough without tearing them, then this might be supported in the field repair. As you can see, this is very involved and not nearly as simple as accessing the inside of other coils. And definitely, I think, a two-person job. Okay. Can you hear the audio on that now?
Push the coil.
Yes, we can hear.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, good. Now, all these
And the next thing you have to do is to detach all the pins.
push pin.
You can see right there. But again, for the for make it easier, we already detach 40 plus of the pin, so we already have only 10 of the pin. So take a look. What you have to do is you have to just push it right that Push.
Go all the way around the perimeter of the coil to pop those out.
Push.
Get the clear plastic housing off.
Push, nice and easy. Here, you just have to push.
I find that once you kind of get good with this or understand
Push.
that it's about 20 minutes to open the coil and another 20 minutes to put it
Push
back
like
together
this.
after you've worked on it.
And you continue all the way. All the way, but this time I already did 6 of them. And now you're also going to flip it again. No. Just like this.
So I know this looks crazy, but anterior coil is our number one
And now,
replaced coil in the field.
simple, you have to
So,
remove the pin just like this.
This is why this is being pursued. Fast forward a little bit.
All the way, like, and now you see your
There.
RXC M0, M1, M2, M3. So now you are accessible to each connector. You can actually disconnect it and reconnect it, and it's very simple.
Soldered into place.
For example, if you like to,
but there are cables that could be removed and inspected and reseated on the RX
M0 R4. Just go ahead and take this out, just like this, and check.
On this coil, they had M0 R4, which is giving them Interact 1H failures. They're removing, blowing out with compressed air, any contamination, reseating the connector. Just like you would on a simpler coil that you would open up.
And reseat it. And that's it. And that's how you disassemble the anterior coil.
So, I'm not sure what you guys think about that.
And maybe Dale, I can give an update. So of the attempt, they have fixed around 20%. So 1/5 of the attempt when they attempted to repair the coils, they have been successful. And as you can, around the market cost for replacing anterior coil is maybe around 10,000 euros, of course, depending on the version. And so we consume 13 to 40 million euros globally on these coils. So we have a huge savings opportunity if this. So it will be decided then somewhere in June, end of June, by the BU leaders, if based on the success of this pilot in Japan, if it will be then go forward for all other markets also. So we have to wait until June before decision.
Thank you, Kenneth. And just to let you guys know that if this does end up being approved and going forward, we will have a tremendous amount of support for you, including videos like that, as well as a full document that's just fully dedicated to opening and working on the insides of this coil and the issues. So I understand that this looks like a big dump on you guys as far as your responsibility. To let you know, though, that in parallel to this, that there are improvements going on with this coil. Here's an example of a failure that we find: link failed errors. Link failed errors are almost always associated with damaged fiber optic or voltage levels that are going to the RXCs that prevent the RXC from communicating. And the communication is always through fiber optic. In Japan, when they opened one of the anterior coils, they found that the fiber optic cable was damaged. Here you can actually see light coming out of that, laser light. And that's because of the original design. The fiber optic was coming through the same hole that the power cables were. And then we've also got a balun right here that these were getting pinched up against. Here's another view of it. What they did in Japan, anytime they opened one of these coils, was proactively were removing the fibers out of the way and putting a zip tie around it to keep it from getting caught and pinched into there. This information has been fed back to the factory in Pune, and this is being adopted now for all production coils going forward. So that should really eliminate a lot of these problems and increase reliability.
Actually,
Also,
Dale,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Actually, they solve it with another way than this cable tie. We just got an update last week, but they have solved this in another way, not using cable tie, because a cable tie applies some pressure, but they have another solution. But anyhow.
Okay, but it's being directed away so that it's safe from being pinched.
Yeah.
Very good. Just to let you know, so this was actually found in the field. I'm sure these faults were being found at the repair department, but they weren't necessarily being captured and fed back to development. Our communication with the repair department and development is still a work in progress, as it always seems to have been. So this is a really great example of how feedback directly from the field is helping us improve coil reliability. And I want to emphasize this, and I want to emphasize to this, when you guys see stuff, please reach out to us, let us know about it. I'd love to get feedback back to development to increase coil reliability. So if you ever have an opportunity to do that, please let us know. But also to let you know that we are...
Dale, if I may, just a moment here. Guys, the feedback tool that the BU have so kindly developed for us in ServiceMax markets is on your work order, in the test and verification, in Pronto. When you have a coil incident that you're working on, you can fill in those details that can be fed back. Dale, the guys can fill in, there's some comments, they can make their free text, what they found and their suggestion, and all the coil details. So please, guys, I know it takes an extra few minutes to fill that all in that you don't really like, but please fill that all in nicely because it does get back to the factory, right, Dale?
Yes, absolutely, John. Also, if you have specific coil feedback, I would appreciate you dropping a line to me because, as you know, we have processes, but we also have disconnects and silos. And if I get these feedbacks from you, I can also do kind of a follow-up. You know, I know a few people in development, I know a few people in the repair department, and if it's something that I think we could really follow up with and make happen quickly and fast track it, I could kind of push from my end as well. So I think the two-prong effect is a great way for us to institute change in the organization. All right, FRUs, how are we doing on time? We're slowing down a little bit. This is so I'm kind of talking generally here about how some FRU fixes require tools, and I want you to order the tool as well. This is really only currently related to one particular FRU. A lot of people have ordered this and were not aware that you need a specialty tool to do it. This is for the, here we go, down here. On the NVC base coil, we've got this, I don't know what you call that, a little pivot connector that was breaking very commonly in the field, and it was difficult to convince the BU to release an FRU for it because it required a special tool to remove the old one. There's little coax connectors that pop in from the back side there, and they have a little ring retention. And this FRU is now made available that you can replace these in the field because it's very high failure rate. But it does require this special tool. So if you order this FRU, order this tool with it as well. There's not a ton of these available in stock, but I still think a lot of people aren't even aware of it, so they're not getting ordered. So maybe in your region, if you guys have overlapping districts, one of your engineers can order this part and share it locally. I think it costs $100, 100 euros. I just want you to be aware, if you see this broken, and people have requested this as an FRU for years, and we finally got it as an FRU, just be aware, and here's the part for it, that you need this tool in order to do it. That pops in from behind and allows you to remove the connectors that go inside right here, these coax connectors. They're very short, so that's why you need the tool to pop them out. You don't have a lot of room to work with. There's a special instruction set that goes with this FRU for replacing it in the field, and it's definitely out there. You definitely want to use it. Be aware of this. Also, to be aware, to remind you that we have FRUs for the NVC head and head neck for these connectors, as well as for the fiber optic that goes inside the NVC head and head neck. Those fiber optics can be damaged like we showed in the anterior coil, and that is available as an FRU. There are specific instructions about how to troubleshoot and do that, again, on InCenter. Here's a wrist coil. A different error with the wrist coil is that this is the locking mechanism from the inside, where you would close the lid wouldn't close and lock all the way because this little plastic retention piece here wouldn't stay locked on the spring. And it's simple. Look at that, just a little piece of white plastic. You can open the coil and fix that. It costs probably €2. I'm sure they charge us €50, but it is available. Here's the 12NC number for it, and that's available in center as well. Also, little things that never got addressed in the past are now being made available. These friction stickers. We have these on a lot of the older coils, particularly the Sense coils for the Achieva systems. Knee coil, Sense neurovascular coil. These are available, 12NC. Here's just an example of the one for the, not sure what coil that is, probably the Sense neurovascular. Yeah. So go take a look. Remember I showed you that it's easier to browse, so you can put in the 12NC or the name of the coil, find the coil, and you'll have the whole list of all the FRUs that are available for that coil, instead of wondering whether it does or having to search specifically for it. Here's some information. I get hit up a lot when people are trying to find specific parts for the older in vivo coils, particularly for the biopsy parts for the breast coils, anything that's disposable for a patient that gets thrown off after each patient, fiducial markers, the little face mask, paper sleeve that goes over the face rest for the breast coils. They can't be ordered through SPS because it's a disposable part. So it's kind of tracked differently through regulatory problems in different countries. Call this phone number. This takes you directly to the people that service the in vivo products. It's a United States number, so it's +1. You hit option 2 when the answering machine picks up, and that takes you to the accessories department. Somebody will actually answer the phone and talk to you, or you can leave a message. They'll call you back. They will know what you need. They are specialists on this. You don't need to have like a 12NC, non-FRU part or something. Tell them what product you have and tell them what you need. They'll get you set up, and that is the quickest and easiest way to get the parts for those specific things. Couple sample cases. This is the case that came up, and it happens to a lot when I give level 3 support to people that are struggling a little bit. They think they know what's going on, and they do what they think is the right thing based on what they think is going on. Things don't work out, so then they reach out to me and say, Dale, why can't I solve this problem? My title for this case is Never Trust the Customer. So the customer called up and said, only coils that plug into the ACI box are aborting scans. He sees that there's link errors for the ACI box. They replace the ACI box and the DCI connector, and they had the same errors. So then they start replacing coils that go into the ACI box. They reach out to me. I go and I use the just the CAT tool, which is the basic tool that everybody had, and I see that other coils with link errors on the same connector are having the same problem. So I'm also seeing that the NVC coil is having link errors as well, not just ACI box coils. I go into the CAT RSDE tool, what we call the Hamburg tool. I've given that link out before. I may have the link to it later in here. The CAT tool, the Hamburg tool online does not need log files loaded up. You just enter the SRN and it's going to give you the results in a little bit more detail than what your desktop CAT tool does. I went to that tool and it showed me that we had low VDH voltages. VDH stands for voltage digital high, and that was going to all the coils that got plugged into that connector. So it wasn't just the ACI box coils, but the problem was the person that called in the complaint was an FSC, or not FSC, sorry, a technician that only used the ACI box and had problems. So he called and made a complaint. Other MR techs on the system did not call and complain, even though they were also having the problem. So if you just take a minute to look at the system overall, you can see that there might be something more there than what the customer's seeing. Classic indication is seeing a lot of spiking. That would give us indication that we have other issues going on. But this is what I saw just using the CAT tool. So ACI box, yes. Reoccurring device error, yes. But I'm also seeing the error with the NVC base coil, 15 errors, 88 errors with the ACI box. So yeah, it looks like the ACI box is the worst, but the ACI box is being used the most. So we're missing the fact that other coils are having the exact same error. I go to the CAT Hamburg tool, the RSDE tool. Here it's telling me very specifically that we have low VDH levels. Those are the voltages that make the RXC power up and communicate with the system. If the RXC doesn't have a high enough voltage, you get link errors. The system can't communicate with the coil, and that's why they're having the scan abort. To anybody that does have a code 1 ID, this tool is amazing, the Hamburg tool. I recommend using it because it takes you a little bit further. It doesn't show you just that you're having an error, but it gives you recommended service action here.
Hey Dale, can you also add a link to this tool in this slide?
I will add that.
Okay, thanks.
I don't think I have it. It's yeah, that's an oversight on my part for not including it. Anyway, the ultimate resolution for this case was the power supply unit was filthily covered in dust for the fan for the cooling on it. They replaced the power supply unit, voltages went back up, everybody was working fine. So we did a lot of replacement, a lot of cost, and a lot of time that would have been saved by literally taking less than 5 minutes to check the overall system to see what was going on for a clue. When we see the same failure happening on multiple coils, we right away stop thinking about coils and we start looking at something systemic. Either the DCI connector, cables that go to the DCI connector from the power supply, or this power supply, or maybe the fiber optics that go from the DCI connector to the SBM. Here's another example of where we are continually kind of doing the same thing, going in circle. We had somebody who was doing a really good job. They were getting on the Hamburg tool and seeing that the VDH levels were continually like dropping slowly. They replaced the connector, and then the same thing would happen again. They replaced the connector 3 times, thinking that we just had cheap, faulty connectors. Finally, somebody went and inspected the connector that was thinking a little bit more, wasn't in such a rush, and they were seeing paper shredded up on there. The users were putting big sheets of paper down to protect the patient support from getting dirty from each customer, and paper was getting pinched in the connector every time that they would plug it in, and then contaminating this. The FSC went on site, inspected this, cleaned it off with compressed air and a brush, instructed the customer about way of working. The problem stopped happening, and they didn't have to keep replacing that over again. Something crazy like that, but you've got to be heads up, and you got to look. You're not going to solve all problems by looking at remote files. Sometimes you've got to go and take a look at the equipment on hand. Here's another example of something, why opening the coil, even without specific instructions or knowledge about what to look for. This coil had a missing module error. They popped it off, and they could see right here that this connector had popped off. This is a power distribution board. It feeds 2 RXCs here. These RXCs did not have any voltage, so the system wasn't seeing it. We were having communication errors. Pop that back in. We've got good voltages going to the RXC, so they're powered up. The thing worked. Didn't require any AFRUs or parts. Required a Torx 10 to open the back of that. Takes maybe 5 minutes to get inside there and just see something obvious. So many of these fixes are just obvious. You'll see them in there. Sometimes you need the documentation to find something specific. If you know channel 10 is bad, you can find in the documentation where channel 10 is on the 32 channel head coil. But a lot of times, just open it and you can see something obvious. All right, we're running light on time. Real quick, we've got about 3 more minutes. New version of the CAT tool is out. I was finding that the CAT tool was crashing on me a lot when I tried to open 5 log files at a time. The new version, go ahead and download it. It's been out for a couple months now. A lot more stable. I don't have crashes happening with me as often. Another thing in release 11, if you are doing manual searches through log files, I still do that a lot. We've got this new log file line in there where the term is just connected coils all together as one word. We'll show you each time how many coils are plugged in at a particular instance. You can see what the customer is scanning with. So if you say connected coils and you wanted to find every time that they had the MSK coil, you could quickly go through and find that. If you're not using the CAT tool for some reason, I would use the CAT tool, but just to be aware of that. Again, I want to give you some ideas of faults that you cannot fix in the field. If you see these, don't bother opening the coil, replace the coil. It's definitely a coil internal RXC connector error, not connector, but RXC issue. The C valve before EOS, end of string error, the DDCP processor error. These 2 errors are fewer out in the field. The RXCs have been redesigned to not have these errors. This was caused in the past with RXCs overheating. This would happen a lot with the D-Stream box. Replace the D-Stream box if you see that. EEPROM not found, that's also an RXC error. Course find failed error, that's an internal RXC fault, or that's a preamp that is oscillating, none of which are FRUs. So go ahead and replace it if you see any of those errors. One other thing, advice is we have two components of our system that get confusing sometimes, the ACI box and the coil that plugs into it. That's the digital aspect and then the analog aspect. And then also the posterior coil has the DCP and the posterior coil itself. Sometimes you don't know which is causing your problems. Use the D-Stream network monitoring tool for that. That gives you a little feedback there on what particular aspect is not working okay. If your DCP is okay and the posterior is bad, it will give you a fault saying posterior and not DCP, or the other way around. Same with any coil that's plugged into the ACI box. Here we say the ankle coil plugs into it. Here everything is okay, but if you had a faulty one of these would show up faulty, and that would be the one that you would investigate or replace instead of doing both. You could save a lot of time trying to figure out which is which. D-Stream monitoring tool. And that also works in real time. So if you have that plugged in and you have somebody go into the examination room and flex cables around and stuff like that, you can force the fault to happen and find out which part needs to be addressed and replaced. There is a large, very detailed document in InCenter about the ACI box, and I recommend going and taking a look at that and brushing up on ACI box troubleshooting. That is generally one of the more complicated areas where we have to investigate coils, is ACI box coils. This is a quick little shout out to show you about what's coming up next with our remote service guidance, about how to think about taking a coil error and putting it into one of three categories. And then what we're going to do is give you guidance in the future about specifically how to troubleshoot that category of fault. And it's going to simplify and streamline. Instead of you thinking that you've got 10 different types of errors to investigate, we've really only got 3 types of errors to investigate. And we're going to give very detailed guidance about an algorithm to work through those. That will be getting probably finished up within the next month. And our next webinar will be at summertime, where we'll go into the details about that. I'm going to skip this part. We've already addressed. That's just a quick discussion about the TR knee coil. We've got 2 FRUs for that, for the cable. Don't order both if you have a problem with your TR knee coil. Anything related to transmit is going to be related to the transmit cable that has the large coax conductor on it. Anything that's receive related would be the shorter receive cable on that. If you have image quality issues, or if you have coil identification issues, you want to replace this cable. If you have VSWR issues or any transmit issues, you would replace this cable. Don't replace both cables if you have a problem with this coil. VSW, here's an example where it would definitely be the TR cable. This is how the system views the transmit receive coil in the system. It sees it as 2 different coils. The sense knee coil, this is the identity of the coil. This is the one that plugs into the ACI box. This has the coil ID PCB inside of it. And if you fail IQT, or if you have any coil ID issues with the coil, you investigate this cable. If you have the knee TR is the one that plugs into the facade connector. It's got the transmit power coax. It also has its own coil ID in it. Remember, if you ever replace any FRU cable, you have to pull out the coil ID PCB inside the connector head and put into your new one. If you throw this out by accident and you plug the coil in without that plugged into the replacement cable, the system will not be able to identify the coil. You will have to replace the entire coil because we cannot offer this as an FRU from the factory. Also, quick tip here for RXCs, if you're replacing the fiber optic cable on the NVC head or head neck, here's a tip about how to remove and reseat that. This information is also in the FRU instructions, but I want you to see that you have to lift up on the clip, not push down on the clip. It's very small and difficult to see, and you'll save a lot of time if you observe that right there. That's it. Sorry for going over time a little bit there. Any questions, comments, feedback?
Hey, thanks a lot, Dale. Actually, I invite questions, but just want to make a quick comment here. Please write your findings, your resolutions in the Pronto forms, which is the new way of working. Uh, um, this is how we also measure the success of our coil repairs. Maybe Kenneth, you can tell a couple of words on that, because if you don't write what you do, all the good work, then it doesn't get reflected as a saving. Yeah, this is a quick comment, but I know this is more a technical seminar or webinar, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to highlight the importance of it once again. It's not only for productivity savings, but also for us to make better, reliable coils. Yeah.
I was on mute. Now, can you see my? Wait, I will share my screen again. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So, as you know, every time you close a work order for a corrective maintenance incident, you will have these true context former Pronto forms asking you for feedback. And what we have added now since end of January is some additional. We have a so-called coil questionnaire added to the true context for every incident case or work order that you close. So you will then be requested to answer this question: what system component is relevant for this service event? If you either fix a coil or replace a coil or repair a coil, if coil, please select coil. After that, it will question what is the result of this service event. Then if you repair the coil, like Dale, you opened, yeah, let's first, you repair the coil. Then you will click here. Then is the follow-up questions. How did you repair the RF coil? Only one option can be selected. Then if you repair the coil by opening it and repair it internally, without additional 12NC parts, like Dale instructed, like reconnecting and cleaning the cable going to the RXC, which is a very typical failure. If you open the coil and repaired it internally, then please check this option 3, because then we will able to track all the savings from this coil field repair program, and John and Unni will be very happy because they can report to their managers that you are working very well. So then your all great work that you are doing will be visible, and we can declare the savings for this program. Yeah, that's all from me. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Kenneth. I don't know, Dimitri, whether it's also relevant for your market, RCA. Are you in the Service Max? I do not know, but I think it's always good to put the resolutions comments. Thank you.
All
Also,
markets are in Service Max except Russia and Brazil and China. So yeah.
So I'm going to send a different version of the PowerPoint out to you guys, and it'll have the link for the CAT RSD Hamburg tool, the online tool. You need your code 1 to access that, and also that link is also on the SharePoint site that I sent you earlier that was set up by Pim in Netherlands. So you can access it from there as well. But I'll send out a PowerPoint that does have the link to the CAT RSD tool. And I will also investigate or ask about how we get our third-party service personnel as much information that they can have access to as possible, or at least get an answer about the BU's official position on that.
Hey Dale, there was a hand raised by
Yes. Kim, yeah.
Hey Kim, yes.
Yeah, I have a question about software issues. Is there any software issues with release 5.7, or only for release 11 and 12?
As far as I know, everything is resolved in release 5.7 as long as you have at least Service Pack 3 with related to coils.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If you do have any problems or specifics, feel free to reach out to me and I can investigate further.
Hi, Aslam, go next, yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Del, for your presentation and troubleshooting session. I'm asking if it is possible if we can add the spine coil of the Prodiva systems, because you know this coil is representing 60% of the system performance, and if anything happen with this coil, the system becomes most probably down. Okay, and we found it is hard to define which component is defective or have a faulty or intermittent problem, such as detune board or preamps. I had a case regarding this coil, and it was too hard to define which component is faulty, and finally we decided to replace the coil, as the customer is pushing on us to replace the coil. If we can add this coil in the next session, it will be great.
The Prodiva spine coil.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I agree. And with our Multiva coil, we also have that situation where the head coil plugs into this. They daisy chain the coils, so it makes it difficult to troubleshoot where the actual fault is. I agree. I'm gonna have to get some support from our service innovation specialist on that about how to deal with those daisy chained coils. I will take that and see what we can do to improve the support for those coils.
Okay, thanks.
And let's see. I see that surrender. Eventually the CAD RSD tool is supposed to be folded into the remote service work spot or MRI. I'm not sure which, but hopefully that will go smoothly. We'll see. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for your time. And again, don't hesitate to reach out. I love comments and questions. You guys help keep me on my toes and make me more useful for providing support when I know exactly what kind of friction you're running up against, like Eslam's information about the spine coil. So,
hey Dale, I had a manual of how to use the cut RSDE tool. Should I share it on the chat, or will you share it?
I didn't know there was a manual for it. Yeah, go ahead and share it to the chat.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, maybe they'll add it to your presentation. Good one.
Yeah, I'll do that. All right, guys. Have a great day. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Dave. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.